We're going to talk about Cicero, who was the leading lawyer of the Republic, but really the leading senator, the leading political figure of the Republic. He was the fellow who fought for the Republic when basically the Republic was going down, and one of the few people there who knew that. He understood that the Republic was probably not going to last, or wouldn't last without a tremendous effort on his part. Just a little bit of background about Rome. Not too much. This isn't going to be a discussion of Gibbons's decline and fall. But there, at the time when he lived, and he lived from 106 BCE to 43, so the last 3/4 of the first century, or the first 3/4 of the first century, by that time, Rome was stretched. They were the largest empire that ever was, and it wasn't really organized as an empire. In fact, it wasn't even organized as a government. They didn't have an organized government. They didn't have organized police, so that there were frequently gangs that roamed around, and the question was, how did you control them? They were worried about that. They didn't solve the problem. We'll get to that in a moment. But they understood that this wasn't quite working out. The parts of it that were most difficult for them was how to handle this large governance that was taking place. It took place as a result of the military, obviously. The military won and in various conquered lands. And then what the Romans did is they sent over a key official of theirs to govern, a little bit like the British used to do. They'd send over a governor general to govern India. So the Romans were doing the same thing. They would send out one guy to go out and govern the new land. And to control that new land, he obviously had a military with him. And that was critical. How do you keep that military loyal to Rome? In fact, they were loyal to the governor. He was them; they were his men. And the question was, how do you keep that going? The solution was to give them land. They were promised, as soldiers who had served for the country, they were given land at the end of their service. Well, the land was limited; couldn't go on forever this way. And as the empire expanded enormously, the problem of what do you do with these guys became ever more emergent, and they didn't really handle it well. They lied a lot. They said it was coming. It'll be next time, another year, another 6 months. But they had their advocate, their zealot, who was the governor general. He wanted his men taken care of. So he was around, and they were worried, on the other hand, of these sort of armies who owed loyalty not to the military but to themselves. The other thing that was happening was a limitation on land led to a great deal of food shortages. When war would break out, and there was a lot of wars going on, the farmers would be prevailed upon to leave the farms and join the military. When that happened, they were off. The land would lay fallow. When they came back, the land was a mess. The question was what to do. It was hard for them to sort of get this back up to snuff. And in many cases, the landed gentry, we would say, the conservatives, bought up the land. So that suddenly you had large amounts of people who were without a means of earning a living. That was coupled with large numbers of immigrants, that is, people who were, let's say, you were in Gaul, you were conquered by the Romans, and now you felt that your life would be better if you got to Rome. You didn't have a right really to be there, but you went. And there wasn't anybody there were no police to really stop you. If you walked in and you didn't damn hurt anybody, you sort of wandered around. One more group of people who were looking for ways to sort of, would you mention two other things? The Romans were very concerned about freedom. It was not an academic issue to them. They understood the danger of the tyrant. It was different than the Greeks, who worried about freedom, but they felt that the way to handle it was to have participation by all of their citizens. The Romans were a little different on all of that. They were much more liberal about citizens. You could become a citizen relatively easily. For example, people who were slaves could, after they were freed, become citizens. That was impossible in Greece. But if you were, once you were a citizen, gave you the right to vote and to participate in various ways, that should make you sort of more comfortable. But still, there was this, as I mentioned, more difficulty with the issue of freedom. If you have this military group that owes its loyalty to an outsider, that is even a governor general, the question was what could happen with that military. They had various rules about that. No one was permitted to bring military men, anybody under arms, into Rome. So, and that was, amazingly, that was called, people were called to task on that not infrequently. If you came and you brought your military with it, you had committed a major political sin. People understood that. That was not to happen. It did happen. There's no question that it happens. But it was not appropriate. And the Romans worried about that. It was a symbol of their idea of the freedom that they all enjoyed. And it was a free, very free society. Not only citizenship was easily, freedom of speech was, even by our standards, very, very high. You can say almost anything against anybody.